Hi everyone, my name is Della Phillips. I'm an artist as well as I'm known as the Bicycle Lady. How you doing today? I'm doing great. Now, I need to ask you a favor. It really helped me out a lot with YouTube. If you find this video enjoyable, entertaining, any of that, please click on that thumbs up icon, as well as subscribing. There's no charge to it, no obligation, but it really would help me out a lot. Tells YouTube that you like this and also lets me know as well. So, thank you in advance. Of course, only click the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. No problem there. Also, if you have any suggestions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I do respond promptly to all comments. I promise. Alright. I promise. Anyway. Alright. Now, from the items on my desk here, hopefully you've already guessed it deals with watercolor. So, exactly what it is. This is the Bicycle Ladies It's Time for Watercolor group of videos. First things first, as I said in the last video, I was going to start out from the beginning to get re-familiar with watercolor. So I gathered up some brushes, and of course I have my plastic palette out here. And actually I do have my trusty Cotman field box. I'm going to put this up here again. And I gathered up some brushes. Now the brushes I gathered up includes flat brushes. Now I know traditional watercolorists say everything can be pretty much done with a round brush. And that is true. However, when I first learned watercolor at a workshop in the U.S., everybody was using flat brushes. If you remember Raskin and his, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. You were painting large watercolors, you used the largest flat brush you could possibly use, and there's a lot of shapes. And on like half sheets or full sheets, or even depending on what you're painting, like skies, on a quarter sheet of watercolor paper, you would use a large 2-inch like this. And I just recently was able to acquire this to replace one that kind of disappeared with the movers when I moved a couple of years back. But I'm glad I got that replaced. I also, luckily, still had this brush show up, which is my old Pro Art synthetic brush. It's a size 18. It's a great round brush. You can cover a lot of areas depending on how you hold it. And for as large as it is, it does come down to a fairly small, maybe like a size 4 tip. So that's one thing. I do have my 3/4 inch flat, along with a 1/2 inch flat. And then the workhorse of the round brushes is usually an 8 to 10. Some people will take it up to 12. It depends on what brand of brush it is, because the numbering system on brushes is dependent on the manufacturer, so it can vary a little bit. They're in a relatively close, fairly close range depending, but this is a nice round brush, number 8. It's a DaVinci Cosmotop, so it's a synthetic as well. And then I have this synthetic, which is a number 6. I got with Albert Dürer watercolor pencil pack I bought. I think it was a box of 24. Then a number 4 and a number 1 liner. And then a number 3. It's not top of the line sable. I got about a 3 or 4 pack of different sizes off of eBay about 5 or 6 years ago, and they did come with me, but they're not the number 7. They're one step below, but they're still wonderful to work with, sable. And so they've lasted me a long time, still in great shape, so I'm happy with it. So these are the brushes I pulled together. Now, since I have these all together in one place, I need to get practicing brush strokes. And that's the first step, is get familiar with your tools, especially your brushes, because that's really an essence on how you're going to have your different techniques of painting and really put your own special stamp on a painting, is by your brush strokes. And as artists said in the past, and when I heard from the workshop, is practice your brush strokes. They were saying 15-20 minutes a day. You could have like the news on and just brushing away. Now, an easy way to practice your brush strokes is basically to take a piece of watercolor paper, like this one here I've tried out several different things on. I'm going to put this to the side here. And you can still paint on this, even though it's got color. Just change the color you're using. And what I suggest is you can use this for several days, maybe even a week or so, is to slowly increase the darkness of your colors until nothing else will show up. And you would just basically take your watercolor paints or tube paint and make you up a little dilution. And I do have some tube paints I got back by the grace of God. I got a few of my watercolor paints back by a friend who said someone was moving out and selling them. He said they need to sell some stuff they got, and evidently that was one of the things that got stolen. And she got me back part of my paints. Not everything, and not all my brushes, but got me part of my paints back. So thank you, God, and thank you, my friend, for that. So essentially what you would do is get some water, put them in here, and I'm going to make it easy. I have a spray bottle here. I'm just going to spray a little bit of water in there. We got a nice little puddle going. And let's see what color. Let's go with a lighter blue. There we go. And you can vary the strength of the color that you mix up as well. You're going to practice with. Now, so with the round brush, you can do various things. Like you could start out small and come back up. Start out small, press down, come back up. I don't know if you can see that. Let me try that again with something. And you can do a continuous line of them, or you can lift up. And that will help give you some petal shape. Another thing, you can press down a little bit and then come up and make a nice long leaf. You can do various squigglies as well, going from dark and press down to a little thin line. You can practice on how thin of a line you can get as well. So that and many more. If you need some suggestions on various shapes you can paint with your round brush and you need practice on how it feels to make those, which is a touch that you develop and you can sense it, you can refer to the reference that I mentioned with the first video in this grouping of It's Watercolor Time, is the complete watercolor notebook. Anyway, that book has a great section on brush marks with various different types of brushes. I think instead of going with a big round right now, let me try one of the flat brushes. Let's do the half inch. And let me wet that down. You usually always want to wet your brush first. And what's great about this is even some people will come in and shape it with their fingers. This one, you're not going to get quite as tight of a chisel because it's so well used. But you can actually make different type of shape using whether you use it straight up and down. You can tap it and get a different look of a continuous line. You can drag it that way. You can start out dragging it that way and then turn it again, turn it, press down, turn it again. You can see all types of different types of lines that you can make. Guess I should have made that darker. So there's a lot of things you can do with a flat brush, all types of different shapes, and you just need to practice and explore that. And again, a good reference to see all the different types of brush strokes that another artist, and it's actually a very good reference, is the complete watercolor notebook, Watercolorist notebook that I showed you in a prior video. And you might be saying, yeah, you know, you're still going to be using a lot of paper if you slowly fill this page with all different colors while you practice. Well, that's true. To save money on usage of paper is essentially use a colored piece of paper. They used to say, get your piece of brown shopping bag paper, and on the smooth side it doesn't have any seams, cut that out, and then you can take your brush, let me take the big one that's not been used, and wet it down with water, and then you can go in and practice how the brush feels, what type of brush strokes you can make, and practice that way. Now this is multimedia black paper. It does absorb quick, but you can still see, hope you can see that in the painting, that you can still come up with a lot of different shapes. And practice making maybe leaves, or petals, that type of thing. And you can practice scumbling, which would be this type of thing, where you just barely lightly drag it off and just get a little bit of paint on top of the surface. And once it dries, you reuse it again. Now granted, as you can tell, this paper has started to wave. Now buckle, as they say. What you can do to avoid using the paper where it will buckle is to essentially stretch you a piece of paper like I did here. And if you remember, I did a video on making your own art board that you can stretch paper on out of scrap cardboard, and I'll link that video down below, but that's what this is. And my favorite way of stretching paper is using staple method, not using the gum paper. I have too many failures when I use the gum paper. I really should cover the staples up, and I will do that with tape. And now you can take your brush, just wet it down with water, and you can practice your brush strokes. And the paper will dry flat, so you don't have to worry about that. So those will give you plenty of material to practice your brush strokes. And using this method with color paper or even a brown paper bag, you will eventually have to replace it, but the paper will be perfectly flat, so that won't change how or interfere with you practicing your strokes and seeing how it would feel to go on perfectly flat watercolor paper. It doesn't use up your paint and does not use up money for paper.